Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about unofficial upgrades on Synology NAS. Now, I don't know if a lot of you were aware, but a little while ago DDR4 SO-DIMM memory arrived in 32GB modules. Now, I know that is not the most exciting or sexy sentence anyone's ever said. I'm sure it's got to be up there maybe in the top 10. But what does that mean in real terms? What that means is now, more than ever before, you can increase the available memory on PCs and laptops and basically devices that use more micro, low energy and more efficient SO-DIMM memory. And with this, there are a number of NAS devices that support DDR4 SO-DIMM memory at different frequencies, ranging from around 2133 all the way through to 2666. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a bench test of using 2 sticks of 32GB memory each and installing them inside this Synology NAS. Now, this is the DS720 a 2017-18 series NAS that officially supports, I believe, up to 16GB of memory. It might support 32GB. They do have a tendency to revisit these things as new models become available. But before I go any further in this video, I want to make it abundantly clear. What I'm doing today is a test of unofficial crucial memory, not Synology's own memory. So if you are doing this, you do this at your own risk. If you take anything from this video and build it yourself, and also bear in mind that Synology themselves will invalidate your warranty if you go down this road. So do bear in mind, if you're going to be using unofficial memory, and if we do this test and it works and you think, hello, I'm going to start installing big old amounts of memory on my NAS, get some of those VMs running, bear in mind that you run the risk of invalidating your warranty, that Synology will not support you, and if you do this at your own risk of you and your data. So let's not take lightly what we're doing today when we know that what we are doing right now is outside of the remit of what this manufacturer says that this can do. So bear that in mind. Now, a little bit about my test setup here. I've got the 1618, and that's going to have, it's already got 2 drives inside that I'm using for a setup guide series of videos that are going to be on the channel very soon. And I've already installed DSM 6.2.2 on this device. Throughout this video, I'm going to remove the official memory that's inside, and I'm going to replace it with this unofficial memory. Again, remember the difference. Then on this laptop, it's on Wi-Fi at the moment, I'm going to connect it to LAN and run through this device to see if it recognizes both or even one of these memory modules. We'll check the task manager, sort of go through and see if that memory is present and usable. Now, on my screen throughout this, and hopefully at points we will flick over to it, it's worth highlighting that at the moment, Span.com do provide built NASes that have got this memory inside, and they say that they will support you. They'll say they'll support, if you have an issue with your device, they'll back you up. But it's worth highlighting and remembering that this is unofficial memory. And I don't want any of you guys watching this walking away from this video going, well, that knobber on YouTube said I should do it. I didn't. I'm saying I'm testing if it's going to work, and you need to know if you want to do this or if you think it's worth the risk. Now, it's also worth highlighting that this device utilizes the Intel Devaton CPU, the C3538, a quad-core 2.1 GHz processor, and it has 2 DDR4 SO-DIMM slots. Now, that CPU is present in a number of NASes, not just from Synology, but other NAS brands too. And looking through the list I've got on screen here, we've got the likes of the 820, we've got the 1819, and we have the 2419, and even rack mount NASes too. So do bear in mind that CPU is present in a number of NASes, and although this test will probably have the same result on a number of other Synology NASes that use the same CPU and the same SO-DIMM memory ports, it is by no means a guarantee. Now, we'll be trying to test a number of NASes over the next few weeks, both from Synology as well as other brands too, to see how these new memory modules play in these devices, because remember, a number of them were released before this even existed. So just because it's not on the compatibility list doesn't mean it's not going to work right now. But I've given so much of a disclaimer to this video, got to be about 4 or 5 minutes in. Let's get to the meat and veg of this video. Now, what I've got today is 2 32GB sticks. These dual kit, this 64GB kit, is not cheap. Each module is about 150 to 180 pounds each. And again, Span.com, I've got those listed. There you go, there's your unsubtle plug. And if you head over to their website, hopefully if it's not on screen right now, it will be on the screen recording when we flick over, that they've got those modules readily available. Now, in the case of this NAS, the memory modules are in the base of this NAS. There is a panel that you remove from the base of the NAS. You bring it open there, unscrew the screw, and that allows you to remove the base panel. And on this NAS, we can see those two memory ports, and one stick is already in there. Now, make sure you do not have power inside this device. What you need to do is take the clips on either side of this and pull them like so, and remove the memory module that's inside. Pop that down there, and then get ready to install your new memory modules. Now, although it's not a caveat that I think is hugely necessary, why take the risk? Make sure you've already set up DSM and initialized your NAS in its entirety before installing this module. Don't do a cold setup with unofficial memory inside if you're going to do this. I'm already using a Synology NAS that has DSM and the RAID already set up and the latest firmware already on the device. So that could make all the difference. Also, do not be surprised if when you boot the device, it takes a little longer than normal for it to boot. Every time I've ever done a memory upgrade on any NAS, official or unofficial memory, for some reason, it always makes the boot time take a little bit longer. So what we'll do is we'll install this first module in this bay here, and we've got that one ready installed. We'll take the next module, and again, do check out the NAS Compare article in the description. Hopefully that will be live, and we'll get that second module installed. So we've got that there. Next, we're going to reattach the base panel of this device. Get that screwed in. Get that screw ready. And then what I'll do is get this device powered up. This is not something that's very easy to do with one set of hands. So I think I'm going to have to delicately turn this over. And do be careful if you are using a NAS that has drives already pre-installed. And the mic at the moment, I've had to bring the mic in a little bit. So there's a mic is about here, so unfortunately if I do wave in front of it, that's that wire hanging out the side there, that might affect the sound, so I do apologise. But we'll get this installed on there, get that memory module put inside, get that there. Then we'll get this device flipped over, and again this is the DS1618, this is a 6-bay RAID 5 enabled NAS. We'll get that put there. I'm sorry if that boom just came through on the speakers. Sorry, guys. Next, install your connect your LAN cable, and then after that, power cable, and get that installed in the back. There's our power cable, and then we're going to click power, and you can hear that fan spinning up for the very first time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit before we flick over to the software screen to see if our test has worked. Now, remember, you are doing this at your own risk. Please be careful, guys. If you are going to run this test, even just for an experiment, make sure you've got a huge amount of backups already in place, and that if you are going to utilize a device and you are going to do this long term, make sure it's out of warranty, because by doing this, you are invalidating your warranty. So do bear that in mind. So right now we can see the LEDs blinking away there on the front of the device. What I'm going to do now is move straight over to the screen here, and I'm going to move over to a LAN connection rather than wireless, just so we can make sure we've got some good fidelity with the device. We're going to give this a few minutes to boot, and right now we haven't heard any negative beeps, because generally if there's a problem you hear a long beep or a continuous beep in 2 beep intervals, but for the most part things seem to be going as normal. I've not heard the initialization beep, but again, it will always seem to take a little bit longer when you upgrade memory, official or unofficial. But let's make our way to DSM once this is booted. Right, so we're on my desktop here, and the beeping on the Synology took about 6 minutes, which is about 2.5 minutes longer than it should have been the first time around. We booted up the device fully, and its status is listed as ready, and here's these tabs that we were talking about earlier in the video. But without further ado, we should make our way in and see if it can recognize our two 32GB DDR4 sticks. We're going to double click there and make our way into the DS1618 Plus. And once again, the modules we're using are unofficial, and I know how repetitious I'm being, and I know I'm just saying it over and over again, but it is worth highlighting this. If you are going to install SO-DIMM DDR4 memory into a NAS using unofficial, unsupported memory, you do it at your own risk. So let's log away into this Synology NAS to see if this test has actually worked. And we'll log in to DSM 6.2, make our way onto the desktop of DSM, and we'll have a look. We're seeing that apparently the system's health at the moment is listed as good, and we'll make our way into the control panel to see the available memory on the device. So let's have a look and make our way to the info center over here, make our way into the device, and we're being listed as 2 megabytes of memory. Now that is interesting, because what we're seeing now is those memory modules are not being officially recognized within the device. Clearly we are using more than 2 megabytes of memory inside this device, because otherwise there's no way DSM would run. So obviously there is some sort of limiter on there. Why don't we make our way into the task manager and the resource monitor to see what that says for itself. So now we make our way into the resource monitor to see how that is viewing what's going on within this device. So memory utilization is at 1%, which is much less than a Synology that's been powered on for about 10 to 11 minutes should be. And if we make our way into the memory, we can see that the total available memory is being listed at 60 gigabytes. But this is not displaying correctly, which is not a great sign. It's clear that the memory has been picked up and that we are definitely using a larger scale of memory. In fact, the cached memory and the used memory utilization right now is fairly standard for a Synology, but the bars being displayed here are clearly not being displayed correctly, and at the bottom here we can see that the free memory utilizing both 32 gig DDR4 memory sticks is still not displaying appropriately. So for now I can't call this test a complete success, because right now it is showing that that memory is not displayed correctly, and graphically we are seeing a few issues. So for now, even based on what I'm seeing, I would not strongly advise installing 64 gig via the 2 SO-DIMM DDR4 crucial sticks right now, because from what I'm seeing, it's not looking like a smooth enough process. I'm not saying that you probably can't take advantage of that memory within the Synology Virtualization Station, Container Station, or other memory dedicated tools, Surveillance Station 2, but I am loath to highlight that it is a workable system going forward, and I will be doing additional testing on this memory using this Synology NAS. I'll continue to test it on other Synology NASs to see if this is something that's just limited to this device or more, or even maybe I can test this device with a single stick now. In fact, why don't I get on that right now? Let's power down the device and leave in 1 stick of memory to see what happens. So for now, let's shut down this NAS and fast forward to one of these memory modules being removed from the NAS to see if the Synology DS1618 will operate with a single stick of memory. I'll see you when the device is rebooted. Right, so I've rebooted the DS1618, but while it was powered down, I did remove one of the 32 gig DDR4 modules. I've already clicked search, but I'll click it again, and it will find the device on the network. Now, it's worth highlighting that this time the reboot took a lot less. It was rebooted in around about 4 minutes. I'm coming back into it now, so there's our power down from earlier. So if we just click enter, the IP address should still be the same. I don't know if I can't remember if I put it on static or dynamic IP. It looks like dynamic. But we can make our way back into this NAS, and now we can see if it's going to identify a single 32 gigabyte module, or if this incompatibility stretches to both individual slots. So the memory utilization has gone down to 3 there. And once again, first thing we're going to do is make our way into the information center and learn more about this. So now we're seeing 1 meg. So clearly the issue in terms of physical memory available is maxing out on each of the individual slots. And if we make our way back into that same resource monitor, we can see if we're seeing any of the other graphical issues that we seem to be seeing earlier on. So there's our utilization. It's at 3% right now. And if we make our way into the memory there, we can see the bars across the bottom here are still not displaying adequately well. We're still seeing the utilization there, but it does look like the module is visible. But once again, I'm still not feeling like this is what I would call a success. I wouldn't call this a success story by any regard, because right now I don't quite like the fact that the memory is not being seen, and there's no denying that this may affect if the device will let you utilize that memory in some of its applications. In fact, why don't we install one of those applications now? Let's go into the package center and see if we can install maybe the virtualization platform that will allow us to allocate memory to a task. So we're going to install the Synology Virtual Machine Manager, and right now there is the replication service apparently to be installed in the background, so this might take a bit of extra time. I'm just going to carry on talking and pad things out the tiniest bit, but if it takes too long, I'm just going to skip forward to the completion of the installation of Virtual Machine Manager. Right now it's doing this all in the background, and I could bore you guys again and remind you once again that we are using unofficial memory, and not do this at home unless you are aware that it will massively invalidate your warranty with Synology. I could say that, and I just did, but what I will also add is that there are many benefits to increasing the memory on your NAS if that is an option to you, because memory equals more tasks, more users. It's not quite as straightforward as that, but there's no denying that increasing your memory can be hugely beneficial to your network attached storage device. Double check that's still recording. Yes. Let's open up the Virtual Machine Manager. So for now, there's going to be the setup wizard here. It's just going to double check that some of our settings are set up. So I'm going to allow this to force forward a bunch of these tests. There's our RAID volume. We've got there a RAID 1. I'm going to let that finish there in the background. And then we're going to try and create a virtual machine area. And with that, we should be able to allocate a certain amount of memory. So now we're going to be able to take a look at whether we can actually create a virtual container with allocated memory within Synology Virtual Machine Manager. The CPU utilization has spiked quite tremendously, which isn't a huge surprise because that would happen in these circumstances. And we are using a lot of the features and functionality of both DSM and the hardware to create this virtual area that we're going to be playing with our virtual machines. So it seems to be taking a little bit longer than you guys should really have to stick around for. So I'm just going to fast forward to the completion of this Virtual Machine Manager container, and then we'll get started with memory allocation. Right, so bit of a whoopsie there. I did notice that during the virtual machine creation of setting up a number of those settings, I did not happen to spot until the last minute, in fact, that it had to change the IP settings to a different unit. The result being that the original IP that it was on was timing out, when really it was completed a great deal soon. And as you can see here, the NAS has jumped onto a new IP here for our settings. However, it's also worth highlighting right here that the system did already notice that we're using non-official memory, in other words, our crucial memory, and it is recommending that you use authentic memory. So both of those alerts, both when we use the two 32 gig sticks and the single 32 gig stick right now, were both listed. So it's worth mentioning that Synology are hot on this, and once again, definitely something to bear in mind if you are going to consider doing this for yourself at your own risk. There you go, the 50th time I've said that. So there's our Synology NAS with all the CPU and settings there, and as you can see, the memory has gone kind of bananas. It's showing minus 30 gig, which is kind of weird in itself. And what we're going to do is create a new virtual machine cluster. So for now, we're going to say this is a Microsoft Windows VM here. We're going to click Next, and we're going to use that container that we've created earlier on. And we're going to say how we're going to create it. So we would go with VM1. And I think anyone that's looked ahead has already seen what the problem's going to be. We'll use 2 of the cores. And it's not going to allow us to use more memory. So say we want to go for 10 gigabytes. Let's see if it'll let us continue. And it won't. Simple as that. Because it can't see the memory. So for now, this has gone from potentially not being any way successful to being a flat out failure in terms of using these 32 gig sticks right now on the DS1618 and in turn the likes of the 18, 19 and other Synology NAS that utilize the Atom-based CPU. But I'm going to wrap things up here because I think we've learned everything we can learn on this. And of course, we will be testing memory capabilities on other devices as time wears on. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it hasn't ended as successfully as you would like, but do stay tuned and follow the channel for other little experiments we'll be doing in 2020. So click like if you've enjoyed this, click subscribe to learn more, and I'll see you next time.